Carl Bradley. I'm a plant pathologist with the University of Illinois.
Give us your overview of your presentation today.
Today I'm speaking about different diseases of corn, and I kind of titled it Emerging and Old Diseases of Corn. One of the major diseases that is kind of new, relatively new, or re-emerging maybe, to Illinois is Goss's wilt, which is caused by a bacteria. And so oftentimes as a plant pathologist we deal a lot with fungal diseases, generally as probably the major types of pathogens we deal with, but in this case we're dealing with a bacterium. And so Goss's wilt was first found in Illinois back in the early 1980s, and since then it has been really kind of sporadically found in Illinois. But the past couple of years, especially in 2011, we have found Goss's wilt more widespread in the state than we ever have before. In fact, the University of Illinois Plant Clinic had found it in 31 counties in the state this past year in samples that were submitted to the plant clinic. So a lot of my presentation today is involved about Goss's wilt, and because it's relatively new to some people, it's important for them to be able to identify it. And so I'm talking a lot about the symptoms. One of the major ways we can identify this disease is it causes foliar lesions on the leaf. Lots of times those lesions will have very wavy margins. And the major thing we look for is a technical term that we call freckles. And these freckles are dark spots, basically, that you can see inside the lesion. And so if you see things like that, then it's important to go ahead and get a real confirmation. And when you send a sample to a lab such as the U of I Plant Clinic, they'll do what we call an ooze test, which is taking a piece of the affected leaf area and putting it on a drop of water under a microscope slide, and then what they'll look for is the actual bacteria that's in the xylem cells in the leaf. They'll ooze out into that water. And so once we see that and we see the symptoms as well, then we can pretty much confirm that it's probably Goss's wilt. Unfortunately, if you do have Goss's wilt, if you find that out during the season, there's not a whole lot that can be done. For that season, there's really no sprays that can be applied or anything. So you really have to plan on next year, and one of the major things is to rotate away from corn. Grow a non-host crop such as soybean. That's the first thing to do. Another thing that might help a little bit is to do some tillage if you're able to, help break up some of that corn residue. This bacterium is able to survive in corn residue for a long period of time, and so if you're able to break up some of that residue and so it'll decompose a little quicker, that might help. And then finally, the next time you do grow corn in that field, it's important to choose a hybrid that has a higher level of resistance to Goss's wilt. So that's the main thing I'm talking about today. I am talking about a few other diseases: northern leaf blight, gray leaf spot, and a relatively new disease to the area, Diplodia leaf streak. And those are all three fungal diseases. Some of the ways we manage fungal diseases are through resistant varieties, resistant hybrids, as well as foliar fungicides sometimes. And so I'm showing some of my data from the last 4 years on corn fungicides that we've evaluated throughout the state. We have a total of 28 trials that we have across those 4 years, about 7 locations each year, 7 trials each year, so 28 total. And what we really see is that we get the highest average yield response when we have higher levels of disease. And we were kind of looking at 5 bushels an acre as a, if you were able to get a return of 5 bushels an acre, then you're probably breaking even or maybe being profitable, according to the costs of the fungicide applications, as well as how much you're getting for your corn. And so what we've seen is that when we have a higher level of disease pressure, we oftentimes are able to achieve that at least a 5 bushel an acre yield response as well. So we find that it's yield responses are highly correlated to the amount of disease that's out in the field as well.
Take-home message.
Take-home message, I think, is first off is being able to identify what's in your field, and that's one of the things I'm really focusing on, especially with Goss's wilt, because they can look a lot like some of these other diseases I'm talking about today. So being able to recognize these diseases, or at least know where to send those to get a confirmation on what it is. And then as far as management, a lot of these pathogens are surviving in corn residue, so crop rotation is very important, as well as growing resistant hybrids. And if you need to spray a fungicide for some of the fungal diseases I'm talking about, then it's important to go out and scout and take into account the risk, the level of risk that you might have based on susceptibility for hybrid or disease history, and use those to help make a decision on spraying a fungicide.